We just had on Work to Game, we will have the full reading of these patch notes if you just want to listen to it as a kind of podcast style, going through this. Not much of this, not a crazy amount of this is wildly new information if you've been covering every single press release of every kind since February, and maybe even before in some cases. But it is time to go over the 6.0 preliminary patch notes. We are going to fly through this under the assumption that I am restating things because maybe in the past it was just too much information to keep it all in your head. So starting out, we are going into a new expansion. That does mean that new cities are going to be added, new zones are going to be added, and of course, new aetherites are going to be added. We are going to reduce the number of aether currents necessary to unlock flying in previous expansions because they've said that system, I think it was described as they didn't want to make the one in this expansion mean, and so apparently they want to go back and take out some of the rudeness of previous ones. We will, of course, have new MSQ. So just be aware of that. That's a thing that's happening. That happens. Every patch is always going to say, and there's new MSQ. New side story quests. They are going to have quest sync. So because the MSQ for 6.0 is meant to take you from 80 all the way to 90, all of your alt jobs will be able to go through those zones, and those will sync with you. Certain story quests will not be able to use quest sync, I assume, because they just couldn't. Role quests have been added. Remember, we are not getting level 90 job quests. We are getting role quests. We are getting, instead of 4 categories, we're getting 5. There was some reasoning behind that, but let's keep it moving. These will be in Radzahan. They give us the coordinates there, but it'll be exactly like before. Studium is our new crystalline mean, and these are for our crafters and gatherers. And so they, of course, have been knocked down into this same sort of concept. It does seem like there's going to be kind of meta ones. So once you complete like all of them, you'll get like a big set. Certain instance battles will now display character portraits alongside the dialogue, so you can better track who's who in here. There is an option to turn this on and off if you have a preference there. This will only, it seems like this is from 6.x and forward, so I don't know that that's something they've gone back and done. I don't know that it's something you want to go back and do, because sometimes they use that like off-screenness to kind of keep the mystery alive. When viewing cutscenes in the Unending Journey, where you go back to watch old ones, class quests and job quests, up to and including those, will require that you change to that job. I think that was a way of kind of skirting what is in there, so you'll have to be that job to be doing that quest, kind of like queuing for New Game Plus. New Tradecraft and Fieldcraft leaves will, of course, have to be added for our 6.x because that system's being updated. Notice there is no battle leave here again. If you wanted to go back and crank those out at lower level, then experience points when using a class at 80 or above, doing something with a level requirement of 80 or below, it's going to cap you at 1,000 experience, which means it's effectively not going to do anything. With consideration of inflation of guild, the potential rewards for single leave allowances are being adjusted. Things that are only turned in once will be increased because those were really frustrating because they only turned in once. But then things that turn in multiple have been reduced, making those, the gap between those, a little less. And then fishers are just, they said fishers were going to kind of be, it sounded like buffed in general, but here they're just phrasing the same thing for hand and fisher, but not land. When undertaking fisher fieldcraft leaves that require spearfishing, the number of fish for completion has been increased because the spearfishing system has changed. There are, of course, new fates. There are, of course, new bicolored gemstones for these. They're not showing us all the zones here, but there will be. We are also getting new treasure hunts. They're going to name them. The maps have new names because they are new maps, and the rewards to the existing ones have been adjusted. Elegant tomestones rewarded for completion of treasure maps introduced prior to 6.0 have been changed from Revelation, which is gone, and from Allegory, which is gone, to Poetics, which is what happens every single time we retire a tomestone. The dungeons here will now be synced, adjusting players to level 80. And our grand companies, they will now be accepting new items for supply and provisioning missions from the expansion that is giving us new items. And the Reaper and Sage symbols have been added to company crests. We will have, of course, new craftable items, and the company buff that changes your movement speed got an adjustment, so it's getting a name adjustment to go with it. This will, I think it basically keeps Sprint on in capital cities or something like that. We will be able to visit the new housing district, the Imperium. Keep in mind that we will not be able to buy houses from this until 6.1. We are just able to visit it as of 6.0. And in preparation for this, the lottery sale system in 6.1, we are already going to turn off the ability to relocate estate plots that are not ready to purchase. So you will not be able to just kind of go jump the line like you could before. That's all just getting towards a system that will hopefully feel a lot more fair to a lot more people instead of it being a group of haves and have-nots. As somebody that's in the haves, I understand why there are people that are upset that they're giving this up. It is a good thing. It is a good thing. Furnishings from the Furnishing Design Contest have been added. This is a phrase that you're going to see often if you're new in this community. They have design contests, and then they add these to the game. So hopefully more people will get to do more with the housing system moving forward. Crafting facility furnishings can now be used by crafting classes up to 80. This is because this stays restricted at 10 levels below cap. So when cap goes up, this goes up. In accordance to the fact that we've gone up by 10 levels, there will of course be new level 90 striking dummies, and they will be located in Thavnair. New orchestrant scrolls will be added because there's new music added, and new aquarium fish will be added. Because at the minimum, we're getting new fish added. I don't know if there will be anything added from kind of previous expansions, but for any of you that have ever tried using the aquarium system, the fish will now be separated into tabs according to size, which is a nice quality of life, and it's made it where that system's not fun to engage with, and so once I set it, I kind of just don't want to deal with it again. So that encourages me to take better care of my lovely aquarium system in my house. New seeds for flower pots added. Not atypical, and then you'll be able to buy those seeds from the Materia supplier as expected. The Golden Saucer, we're going to have new prizes available for MGP. Remember, the fastest way to get MGP is to do your weekly fashion report from Friday to Tuesday reset. Saturday, whatever that timing is, I do it on the weekends. The following additions have been made to Triple Triad, that there will, of course, be new cards added. That makes sense. New NPC opponents added, and that you'll be able to engage in matches in areas that didn't previously exist. That all makes sense when you add a new expansion. Players will now be able to select male Viera. Remember that you can pre-build your Viera in the benchmark, and that you can also burn a Fantasia prior to the servers going offline on December 2nd, early in the morning. And so that way on December 3rd, when you hop in, you're not wasting time that you could be in queue, logging in once only to log back out to then go through character creation and then have to go back through queue. No. Get your Fantasia done now. Literally go to character creation, select your previously done one, and get into the queue. Get into the queue. So this is very, very exciting. That's awesome. New hairstyles added for female Viera. Male Viera were designed to be better allocated, so hopefully they won't run into the same issues. Keep in mind that Rothgar hairstyles are scheduled to be added in 6.1. They are working on it. They are aware. And that we do now have our lovely stubble here because Derplander also stayed home all of 2020. Estinian has been added as a new trust thing there. He will not be able to go back with us into Shadowbringers. That wouldn't make any sense. And in accordance to their level cap, the avatar version, when you're not going through the MSQ for the first time, using the trust system to skip the queue or expand on your narrative experience, the avatar system, the ones that level up, they will be able to go up to 90 as well. And then along with that, because of the way the experience is changing, that means that any existing levels will be reset to 0 progress. So what that means is if you were level 76.5, you're now going to be level 76, and that's because they're reducing the amount of experience needed per level. They're reducing the amount of experience things get so that we're not tracking such large numbers. It allows the game to run a little bit better, but in order to do that, they said to keep track of literally every individual experience point on every job, on every character, and every trust system and retainer and all of this stuff. It would have meant the game was off for several weeks when they took it down, so that everybody's experience stopped moving. So they would have had to shut down the servers for our 24-hour maintenance, but that 24-hour maintenance would have had to extend while they manually went through and verified all this. And it was easier to just say, you know what, let's just round everybody down. They also looked at rounding everybody up, but they said it caused a lot of problems. So what that really means is when the servers go offline, if you're seeing this and you still have time and you're at like 0.9 of a level, maybe it's worth going and running a fate or something to ding it over. If you're at 0.1 or 0.2 of a level, just let it go. It's all going to be better in the end. We have made adjustments to Wondrous Tales. So we're getting adjustments to the rewards for certificates, and then we are, of course, going to be adding things available that can appear on your bingo card because now you're going to be higher level. So we're now saying, you know what? Maybe you do need to have to go back and run Tower Paradigm's Breach, which is now considered legacy content, and so on. Same with Old Extremes, and then, of course, being able to run dungeons that didn't previously exist. So, of course, they couldn't be on your Wondrous Tales. Endwalker will indeed have a sightseeing log, and the following additions have been made to the challenging log. These are effectively not that different, because we removed high-quality gathering items, so when we replaced it with an effect called Gatherer's Boon. So, of course, this high-quality becomes Gatherer's Boon. It's effectively the same thing. We got rid of high-quality fish, and we call them now large-sized fish. So we've effectively done the exact same thing. So there's really nothing has changed here. We're just cleaning up the phrasing to better align with the changes to those systems. The Skywatcher NPCs have been added to the new areas to tell us about the weather. The level cap for battle classes is, of course, going to 90, and Reaper and Sage will be added starting 10 levels, at the beginning of the previous expansion, which is typical, which means level 70, beginning of Shadowbringers. Reaper will start in Ul'dah. Sage will start in Lemsa. So if you want to log out in one of those places, you can. If you want to log out somewhere that you'll get less lag when you first hop in and go thereafter, that's where you'll be going to pick those up. Remember that all existing jobs have job action changes. If you have not seen your job in the job action trailer or gone and seen coverage to all the actions and traits from the media tour, those numbers weren't final, but that will get you a ballpark of what has changed. The sick peck action really didn't make sense anymore, and so that is now gone. And the time frame in which players get to complete their combo actions, we found out at the media tour, went from 15 to 30 seconds. Here it just says extended. And there are things that just no longer break those combos. So now if your combo's breaking, it's probably you, which I think is a really positive change and helps me chase improvement and not wonder, did it break because of something I couldn't control? So limit breaks on melee classes, your ranged attacks, they no longer break your combos. And then for any healer that's ever cast in LB3 and wonder why it didn't res somebody because you were standing on one side of the arena because of the encounter you were in, the effect of your healer limit break has been increased from 30 to 50 yalms, which is a big positive change. In order to curb the inflation of game data, such as HP damage and all that, we have downscaled this. What that means is that if something had 1,000 life and you did 100 DPS, you would have killed it in 10 seconds. Now it would have, it's going to have basically 20% of that. So let's say that thing had 200 life, you would now do 20 DPS and you would still kill it in 10 seconds. So ideally, this will have little to no effect on game balance, but it will feel different. The numbers in your flyover text will be smaller. The player attributes will be adjusted, of course, to deal with this because now attributes are going to start feeling different also. So attributes across the board are different, and determination and piety on certain have been adjusted to match the values. The goal is to chase balance. Also, in addition to this, physical and magical had different kind of coefficients on the background. They use the term parity. They've removed that where now they're calculated the same, which means in line with that, physical and magical potencies didn't adjust by the same amount because the physical potencies had to be adjusted to make up for that parity. It's just a change in the math. The end result, the damage will be done the same, even though the potencies look a little bit different. The effects of certain NPC and monster actions have been adjusted, and we are also doing this with experience. So we've gone over that, and just expect that to change. And then, of course, because we're changing the amount of experience you need and you get, all sources of experience have to change as well. The armory bonus for anybody chasing Omni 80 and their Amaro mount has been increased from 50% to 80%. The way the armory bonus works in this game is your highest level job has to level up legit. Every job below that gets what's called an armory bonus to make that a little bit easier. It's kind of effectively our answer to like the WoW heirloom system. The status true self has been changed to indomitable spirit. And the status effect is applied during instance battles wherein players control NPC allies, and the difficulty has been set to easy or very easy. So that should there's going to be some phrasing adjustments. They talked about how there was some things that were not quite translating cleanly. English was the least affected of the languages, they said, but just don't be shocked if some things just kind of change names, and they're just kind of cleaning things up so that it's more consistent across the entire game. The new world and preferred world character bonuses will now be at level 79 and below. So instead of a road to 70 buff, we'll get a road to 80 buff for playing on a new and preferred world. There will, of course, with new zones, be new enemies. There will, of course, be new dungeons. And experience points previously earned from standard dungeons will now be earned from bosses. What that means is instead of you getting, 100 experience from 10 different trash monsters for 1,000 experience and 1,000 experience on the boss, you would, in that example, get all 2,000 experience on the boss instead of the trash. And that just cleans up the way the experience drops and does the math. It does mean that trash is not necessary to pull, but everything after ARR, trash isn't really optional. You have to clear it anyway. So it's going to be the same exact experience. It just may feel a little different. You'll get this big boost after each boss instead of it kind of trickling in across a dungeon. We are changing a little bit about gearing. They're just going to clean this up. Item levels and weapon coffers across the board are just getting cleaned up. They're aware that as we add more and more jobs to the game and more gear to the game, it's getting harder to go get the thing you want and know what's relevant and all of that. So they're just going through and cleaning it up because this game is a lot bigger than it once was. And so in accordance with the increased level cap, you'll now gain experience from level 80 dungeons, which would have had no reason to drop experience before. Trials and Shadowbringers raid dungeons, those will grant experience now. They're, effectively granting experience before, but you just couldn't collect it. We are getting new trials. They're not going to tell us what those are. The Great Hunt, the Rathalos fight, is going to have a new visual indication for the tail. And Unreal Trials. Unreal Trials are them bringing an old trial up to current level for a single patch cycle, and then that fight gets removed, and with the next patch cycle, they add another one. What they are effectively doing is they are taking the 6.0 patch cycle off from that system because we got a whole expansion. We got plenty. So that means when the 5.51 expires, Leviathan, we will not get another one till 6.1. So I think disabled makes it sound like they took something away. It's really just that they did not add one to 6.0, and they will be adding one to 6.1. The weapon coffer, so that you don't have to randomly try to get weapons as we continually increase the number of jobs in the game, is something that they're rolling back to everything backward because they think the weapon coffer is a better system. And then when you get as a paladin, you're going to receive both the sword and the shield. And then when you descent, the sword and the shield is effectively, the sword will now give you primal weapon crafting, probably at the same rate that every other weapon does, but in trade for that, shields will no longer grant it. So I think they're just bringing paladins in line with every other class. It was a little weird that they worked different because they get 2 items instead of 1. The gear obtained from treasure coffers in the following duties has been changed to gear coffers. Once again, for the same reason, it'll be easier to get the thing you want for the class you want by moving it to gear coffers. Echo is being added to the last trial and its extreme from Shadowbringers because it's time for that. And for anybody that has not gotten their E12S clear, that has gone ahead and been moved from 15 to 20%, where it will stay likely for all of time. That's a pretty typical way of managing the final Savage. We are getting a new Stone Sky Sea Air for the level 90 stuff. That will be in Rad Zahan, is where that quest will kind of handle that for you. The weekly restriction on getting your cracked Stella clusters for Tower Paradigm's Breach will be removed because there's nothing game-breaking about giving us unlimited access to level 80 stuff. We will get new elite marks in the new area. These models look familiar, or at least these 3 do to me. And those will allow us to exchange for sacks of nuts, but in the new cities. So that makes sense. Reaper and Sage's arms are now available from the following deep dungeons, because when you're in a deep dungeon, it renders your character with that available. So every time a class is added to the game, they do get new deep dungeon weapons. However, they do not get new relics. So keep in mind there will be likely no ARR Heavensward, Stormblood, or Shadowbringers relic added for Reaper and Sage. That's how relic systems have worked in the past. So just keep in mind, deep dungeons get updated, relics do not. There will also be a new leaderboard allowing for Reaper and Sage to get their clear because they would be eligible for that content. Players can now sort adventures list by class and job when you're in places, when you're in these zones here. That way you can go ahead and get to the job you want, which I think will be really helpful when you're doing that relic content where it doesn't necessarily balance a party in the typical way. And then the error message when trying to use return for Castrum and Dalreda in Bosgen Zadnor has been adjusted. The maximum waiting time before going into Delibram is now just 10 minutes, and it'll shoot you in regardless. I think that's a better play, and then the Strength of Echo will be there to kind of offset that. But this will not apply to Delibram Savage if you want to go farm a Cerberus mount. The Allagan Tomestones, this is updated. You will only be able to get up to 2,000. That's not different. And there is no weekly cap on aphorism. This is our allegory. We will get astronomy, but that will not be available until the Savage tier drops, so that people feel that they can take their time enjoying the story for the first 4 weeks of the game. This is how Tomestones roll out every time. Nothing crazy here. So we're going to get rid of the old ones. We're going to move them all down into Poetics. And we're going to add new ones, with the first of the weekly capped ones being added 4 weeks after the expansion comes out. So not an atypical experience here. Just a reminder, because it's been a while since we've gotten an expansion. The following adjustments have been made to Duty Finder. The undersized party is now named Unrestricted Party. Like I said, they were just cleaning up some names because that kind of confuses people there. And 5.x can now be done with that. 5.x could previously not be done unsynced, undersized, and now it can be. Certain duties will now grant the Epic Echo status, which will allow players to have a level of difficulty similar to before the downscaling, because the downscaling, the math doesn't work out quite exactly right, and so they're giving us what's called the Epic Echo to offset that, so that ideally things feel functionally no different. The Raid Finder will now only show us the ultimates, because we don't currently have a raid. I expect that to be updated as we move towards having raids. So, you know, they're just cleaning that up because it wouldn't make sense to kind of leave the Shadowbringer stuff in there. We're moving into Endwalker. The duties associated with each duty roulette category will be added. The 50, 60, 70 will now be the 50, 60, 70, 80. And the type of tomestones has been adjusted. You'll notice that this is now giving aphorism. So not wildly shocking there. The calculation for experience for Chocobo companions has also been adjusted, just like retainers, just like battle classes. And then Reaper and Sage will be allowed in PvP, so they of course get their own PvP actions. The Feast, Season 20, will end, and a pre-season will begin. Remember that we are going to be changing the PvP system in 6.1, and so your tier rewards must be claimed before that. So we'll be talking about this a lot as we go into the live letters post-Endwalker launch. As would be expected with the new expansion, we are getting new items, new recipes. Some of those recipes will be quick synthable. Some of those items will be sellable or desynthesizable, or things that you can turn in for Grand Company seals. Remember that we are removing belts. We'll go over that in a second, but we are doing that to take the 35 slots from belts and give 15 of them to your main hands for any of you that have tried collecting relics and have leveled a lot of the jobs, and to rings, because we wear a left and a right ring. So that will increase those to 50 and keep the memory requirements for the game the exact same. The description for the items that increase experience is just cleaned up to be more reflective of how they actually work. It did not change. What happened before is when you sink down below that level, they turn back on. So if you are level 32 and you have the brand new ring equipped and you sink down into Sasasha, it was giving 30% additional experience, but it wasn't clear by the tooltip that that was happening. And so while no changes on the effect happened, the phrasing is going to be a lot cleaner on these types of items. Reaper and Sage will, of course, be added to the gear sets for healers and for Dragoon, so that it's clear what gear they can wear. And they will get their AF gear as soon as you're level 80 and have finished the role quest for them in the Tempest. The sale prices of certain items have been adjusted, and we're changing some phrasing. Flanchards are becoming Solarettes. Just kind of cleaning things. Pumpkin cookies become old pumpkin cookies. There are going to be our gear from our tomestones across Shadowbringers. The rings are unique, so that you are encouraged to go get like a Savage ring and a Tomestone ring. That is how these always work. And then once that expansion becomes legacy content, once it gets kicked back being old, the 50, 60, and 70 sets, you could wear the same ring for both your left and right. And that is now what is happening to our Shadowbringers rings, is the unique keyword there has been removed. And so if you have an augmented ring of casting, for example, you'll be able to have a second augmented ring of casting equipped. which just makes gearing a little bit easier when that all becomes Poetics purchasable and you want to just gear up an alt at 80, and you can just throw 2 of the same ring on. A new system has been added, allowing players to dye artifact gear after progressing to a certain point in role quests and main scenario, and that is, of course, going to remove, they'll remove some phrasing, but we're going to start removing some gender locking on some things. They've been talking about wanting to do that, adding some dyeableness to these. This is all just good changes to cosmetics. In accordance with the downscaling, we are going to have to address the way gear works, or the numbers on gear, the numbers on materia, the numbers on food. And so that's all been adjusted to be in line with that. Our previous relic weapons, their attributes are going to have to be adjusted as well. And then on like the anima weapons, for example, you'll be given a chance to reallocate secondary attributes because that wouldn't be fair. Piety attribute being removed from these items because it's no longer going to make sense. The physical and magical defense Disciple of War gear that can be equipped by tank classes has been increased. And in light of this, your recommended setting will, of course, work a little bit differently depending on what is available in your inventory. Players can no longer cast lots on coffers containing multiple gear pieces if they already contain a unique item that possesses. However, it is still possible to cast on things like weapon coffers whose contents differ because you might still want to collect that. The error message when you fail to open a chest will be adjusted to make that a little cleaner to you. And now let's talk about belts. Belts are no longer equipable, but that is not the same as being deleted. What is happening is the waist tab in your armory chest is being removed. They are no longer going to be equipable, so there is no reason to track their durability, so they won't be repairable. There is no reason to track their spirit bond, because you can't put experience on them, so you will no longer be able to extract materia, which is not retrieve. You should be extracting when your spirit bond hits 100% anyway. You will no longer be able to attach materia to it. However, you will be able to retrieve previous ones. Because nobody can use them, they will not be purchasable from vendors. Vendors will not ask for them from you. You will not be able to sell them on the market board to other players. You will not be able to trade them to other players. Recipes that make them have been removed. They'll no longer be given to you as a quest reward or a coffer reward or anything like that, because there's no reason to get new ones in game, but yours have not been deleted. If yours were in a slot that has been removed, they were in your armory chest, they were equipped to your character, they were equipped to a retainer, those will now be in a new tab in your Calamity Salvager, and you will get them back. They will still say on them, I believe they said they will still say who made them, they'll still have the materia, you can retrieve all that, they're just being stored there. You will only be able to access that on your home world because that's how Calamity Salvagers work. In accordance with the removal of belts, the calculation used to determine your average item level will be adjusted because now it's not going to have that slot there. And then any achievement that required that you have a belt has been adjusted, and any crafting thing that is required that you craft a total number of unique recipes obviously has been adjusted because there's not as many recipes for those level ranges. The speed belt, for those of you in Eureka, they added a blitz ring in its place, so you'll be able to kind of use that as a ring. I don't know why they picked ring slot versus anything else for people that were upset about that. And the Sundry Splendors, your one-stop shop in previous expansions, we are now getting one in Shadowbringers. These are in the main cities, and they actually have a little drop down, and you can see the item level of all of these. They actually tell you right here what it costs, a token or a tombstone, which is super cool. And the following adjustments have been made to gear exchanges for Allegory, Revelation, and Phantasmagoria, that they are now going to cost Poetics. If you already had something and you want to make it augmented, that will just cost Poetics now. So it's just cleaning all that up and making it more in line with the fact that Shadowbringers is now going to be considered old content. The maximum amount of crystal sand and umbrite required to upgrade an animal weapon has been reduced, and the inventory of Calamity Salvagers is obviously going to have to go up to account for, at the minimum, belts. But also any new like achievement gear or anything like that that we may get that would be protected by Calamity Salvagers would be added to their list of potential things. And then they're going to clean up the phrasing to make it a little easier to tell what you need. If we're having different achievements or whatever, that's all just getting cleaned up. The collectible dealer in Mordona at Revenant's Toll has been removed, The level cap for Disciples of Hand and Land, they are, of course, also going to level 90. The amount of experience for them is also being adjusted, so then things that grant experience is also being adjusted. And just like with last expansion where we discontinued red scripts and we moved to yellow and white, we are now discontinuing yellow scripts and we are moving to white and purple. And so we'll be doing that. It's not a big deal there. And then that will, of course, change what things are given to us, what things we can buy and are given, to be just in line with those. To improve the functionality of the script window, categories have been reorganized with a new interface, which is going to make this much, much easier to use. I hope. That is a very frustrating system. And so we will have a unified script exchange. Hooray! And the available menu from the Splendors vendor in Idleshire has been changed from looking like this to looking like this. Way better. We are now getting blue. Oh, it's blue. I don't know why I said purple. They're blue, 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 blue. No longer obtainable. That's right. Are blue gone? Whatever. We're just moving to new colors. So, yeah. That's right. Okay. So those are going away. No big deal. The tokens are still going to be obtainable via the token exchange option. They're just updating the scripts. No big deal. And then we are now getting flying text for things that affect your CP or GP, for anybody that's been wondering where those were. And we are getting new actions and traits added because they're going up 10 levels. We have had abilities to craft things as a set. So we've removed these swords and shields to add, making them as a single set. It's something they've talked about wanting to do, and they're finally doing it. Very, very cool. And we have recipes under the level-based recipe and special recipe are now organized from highest to lowest, making that just a tiny bit cleaner. The housing categories have been adjusted. Instead of being an arbitrary housing 1 and housing 2 that you don't know what you actually want to buy, they've been actually broken out so you know exactly where you're going. And then an icon. Now that not all items can be high quality, some can and some cannot. If something can be high quality and increase the likelihood that your craft is high quality, it'll get a little icon added here. The Skysteel Tools material is no longer required to be high quality because we're removing high quality gathering. So no big deal there. We're stopping you from abusing Ishgard Restoration by saying if you're above level 80, you're only going to get 1,000 experience. And it is now possible to submit collectible fish that fall underneath the collectability threshold, but then of course their rewards would be adjusted in line with that. The amount of Crafters and Gatherers scripts has been adjusted. If for no other reason, we adjusted what the scripts were, and then you'll be able to do the same with fish as you did, like for custom deliveries, as you did for Ishgard. Due to the downscaling values, the progress and quality values also has to be adjusted so that it does not feel different, especially when you think about the fact that we craft and we will no longer be able to gather high quality. Resplendent tools will now be renamed obsolete. The components and stuff we crafted prior will now be renamed obsolete resplendent tool components. New actions have been added for Disciple of the Land all the way across the board because we have gone back and we have actually removed high quality to add a trait called Gatherer's Boon. That increases your yield by 1 and it appears in the same spot and will also grant increased experience, will also count towards the achievements that give you the title. It's just replacing quality, and there will be items that have specific perception requirements have been added as well. So it's all going to work. We'll just have to feel it. The vitality attribute for them has been adjusted because honestly, it didn't really make sense now that we have stealth anyway. And then our gathering log has been cleaned up a little bit. The following items not being available as high quality. Our fishing are going to being large, but then we're no longer getting things like skins or purchasing high quality for tomestones because there is no more high quality of certain items. So naturally, the sources of those have to go away. So things like ethereal reduction will be adjusted, but we're going to get more things from old ethereal reduction as a result because it's effectively triggering Gatherer's Boon. The following quests can now be completed by submitting normal quality, and that is anything that once required high quality. And then things that had high quality as an option, base rewards have been increased to make it not feel like you're being punished. Here is where we call our new high quality fish large fish. and that is what you will use for Mooch instead. Makes sense. And that is how patience will work and all that. So effectively, fishing stayed pretty much unchanged. We're getting this angler's art here, which will make it you able to execute certain actions. And then our achievement that required high quality will now require large fish. If you have high quality things in your inventory, you will now have a part of your tooltip that says it functions as normal quality. You have always been able to right click and lower quality to normal quality if you want to do that. And so if you turn it in for Grand Company stuff, they'll just handle that for you and they'll just give you the normal quality amount. But if you want to sell it, you will not be able to sell it while it has that high quality marker on it. And high quality items that can no longer be obtained are no longer going to grant that experience boost to crafters, and they will have adjusted crafters to be in line with that. Spearfishing is now becoming a mini game, and we're going to go 2 teaming waters like we did before, and we're going to play this little mini game. Wariness is what determines when the node wears out. As we catch things, there is going to be the ability to get high quality. They'll be called large fish. And it will be marked when there's kind of an ability to get that distinctive appearance to guarantee that it's a fish. And then we have a number of successful catches here that'll kind of slow the wariness increase to stop you from burning through the node too fast. There will, of course, be new nodes added, and the category and names are going to be more in line with how they work because they just work differently. The actions and adjustments have been made to ocean fishing, because now we've changed high quality into being large fish. And so we've got to adjust that. And then we've got to handle the change in scripts. There's our purple. I'm not insane. The following additions and adjustments have been made to fishing, where of course we're getting new fishing holes in the 6.0 zones, and then you'll be able to get records from those. That makes sense. We're adjusting the cost of bait to be cheaper. And your fisher's intuition will stay even after logging out, which I know is important to people who are getting AFK timed out while waiting for certain weather conditions or something like that. It felt awful to just have that gone. We are going to have a regional folklore and new gathering points, new items. Some of those will be ethereal reducible, all within the 6.x zones. And the number of items in old ones has been increased because remember that we're not getting high quality from them. Desynth has been increased from 520 to 580 because the item level has been increased. The game will have more mounts, more minions, more bardings, and more fashion accessories. The old Charlayan, our new capital city, just like our existing capital cities, will have a market board. Reduced tax rates have been adjusted. Our retainers will be able to go to level 90. They will be able to be Reaper and Sage jobs, provided they meet the requirements to be assigned jobs in the first place. Keep in mind that something can only be up to the level that you are. So I have a retainer that is a Black Mage from when I was a Black Mage main. I'm leveling my Warrior first because now I am a Warrior main, which means my Black Mage going out on ventures at the start of Endwalker will not gain experience until I start leveling my Black Mage. So if my Black Mage is not 81, my retainer cannot be level 81. So just keep that in mind when you're selecting what jobs that is. So if you don't plan on leveling Reaper and Sage, picking a Reaper and Sage isn't going to help you if you don't plan on capping it. So the amount of experience for them has also been tuned, which means that if they are partially leveled, that will be reset just like everything else. We are making adjustments to their delivery and exploration. We're making, because obviously we're going to have to deal with all of this. There's new stuff. There's going to be new items and everything for the new zones. And so, and then they won't be able to gather high quality either. So their perception rating will now trigger their ability to do bonus items because they're effectively going to have the exact same thing that they did before. They're following the Gatherer's Boon that we're following. The required item level can now be confirmed before selecting a mission. And when selecting items in the delivery missions for gatherers, the search recipes using this and search gathering method will be added to that as well, so that you can see, like, why do I even want this, as opposed to toggling back and forth. Meanwhile, the rest of the game, they've added these and they've made it so much easier, so it's just been cleaned up. We'll now be able to confirm items not recorded in our gathering log when viewing the delivery missions in window, which will just make that easier to tell what's going on. We are getting a new achievement window. It's effectively a reorganization of the old one. We'll see how different it really feels. Instead of your relevant tab having your near completion and recommended, they're up here to encourage you to use those. And hopefully it makes things a little more trackable. We don't really know, but it definitely looks nicer. There will be new achievements and titles for all of the new content. And then there is a new thing now that we are changing the teleport cost. There are a lot of people interested in Aetheryte tickets, but the frustrating thing about Aetheryte tickets is I don't want to use them on really cheap teleports. And so now I'm going to add an option that will allow me to say, this is the value I think a ticket should be used at. I have a certain number of tickets, and I want them to save me only money when it costs more than 1,000 or something like that, so that I'm not burning it on like a 136 teleport, and then I run out of them, and I have to pay a 999 teleport. Because we're adjusting the cost, I think that's going to be incredibly important. The Aethernet system. This now has a whole interface. You can kind of just click, or you can mouse over. It'll show you where it is. That's a lot easier, especially when you get into capital cities like Gridania, where you go to like the Leatherworkers Guild to get to the market board, because it is where the leatherworkers are. But if you're not looking for leatherworker, you're looking for market board. That's confusing. Now you see the market board, you click there, it takes you there. But this is only in big open world zones. It is not in relic based zones like the Firmament, Bosnia, Eureka. Sorry. We are updating our world map, and you controller players will be able to zoom out to that. There's your keybind, because the world is getting bigger. Obviously, we are having new classes, so the Party Finder menu needs to be adjusted. The custom option under location has now been added, and we will be able to have some control over that. When somebody is casting raise, you'll be able to see what position in the party they're raising. So they are raising the person in slot 1, which is our lovely tank here. And so that'll make that easier to tell who's raising who. The search results will no longer include parties you cannot join if the per job is being enabled. And pure healers and barrier healers can now be specified when recruiting party, so that if you're like, you know what, I'm okay with either of the barrier or either of the pure, but I definitely want one of each healer, you'll have that option, because we did divide the healers into 2 groups. When a party member withdraws, everybody was getting a penalty before. Well, now we're going to know about it. It was already happening, and then you were all of a sudden banned because you had a friend that kept switching jobs and not going into duty. Now we're going to know why. The Aether Compass has been moved to the collection menu, which has gotten a little beefier over time instead of being in the key items. And for those of you that have ever died in an alliance raid or in somewhere like Bosnia where you'd like a res, your HP bar will now continue to show as empty, so they no longer have to look on the ground for bodies. They can look for missing empty health bars. For those of you that play jobs that you worry about when certain buff windows are active, your conditional enhancements category is now splittable into 4 groups, so you can make just one of those categories really, really big. So if you don't care about your food buff, but you do care about goring blade or whatever, you'll have the ability to split element, or like I want my Storm's Eye on my warrior, I can make my Storm's Eye really, really big and put it somewhere else on my screen and say, you know what, put food buff over here. I just need to know that it's up. I'll check it between every pull. We also have ground targeting adjustments. You'll be able to change kind of how fast the cursor moves. You'll be able to change, can I take it to somewhere it can't actually go, or will, like, if it only goes this far on my screen and I drag my mouse out to here, just set it to the cap. I just want to be able to quickly do it. And for those of you on controller, you have an option to say, I want to push a button, or anybody that just wants to be able to do it with buttons, you'll be able to push an action button to pull the ground target out and place it, and then if you push that button a second time, that is what will activate it. These are all optional ways to play. Pick what is most comfortable for you. And then when you submit for trading items, it will automatically select the highest quality first, which makes sense. That's incredibly helpful. With the new level cap, we are now going to say that Sprouts, or anybody that for some reason have only played up to 300 hours. What noobs, having only played 300 hours and not having finished Death Unto Dawn. So somebody can play this game an awful long time and still be labeled a new adventurer. The bonus experience when a mentor forms a party with a new adventurer will now apply all the way to level 80. But to become a mentor, instead of having level 80s, you're going to have level 90s. That makes sense. The Explorer mode is now being added, of course, to the 6.x dungeons, but also going back. We're going back to Stormblood. We are getting some new things for G-Pose, so you'll now be able to initiate G-Pose while doing your performance action. You'll have this activate G-Pose here. You'll also be able to initiate when undertaking a duty as an ally or enemy NPC. There will be new frames and new stickers. And remember that NPCs are going to accompany you during certain quests in 6.0, and they will be settable as targets. The duty recorder, we are swapping out Puppet's Bunker and Eden's Promise Savage with Tower Paradigm's Breach and stuff they can't tell us the name of. When selecting items to be sold by a retainer, the search for item by crafting method and gathering method have also been added. We're going to be able to disable the resizing of chat log windows if you want that to be turned off, because that can be very frustrating. And in order to reduce server congestion, we are going to be, if you are inactive for 30 minutes, I've heard they're actually increasing the ways they can track this. And new areas will be split into multiple instances. We've seen this before. They'll do what they can, but remember, there's a lot more people that want to play this game than they should ever have servers available for, because they should set up the servers to be something that manages the amount of money that they have to spend on this game well, and there will be a lot more people in the early weeks of Endwalker that want to play this game. It's a sold-out concert for your favorite music artist than there will be a month in. Many of us that play, let's say you normally play 2 to 6 hours per week, or you play 10 to 20 hours per week. It doesn't matter. Whatever your normal week is, that's probably going to look very, very different for you upon release of 6.0. And so naturally, they're going to do what they can to make sure that there aren't people just taking up a spot on the server who aren't really playing. They've added support for the DualShock traders. They've added the ability for you to send them a picture of your ear and do these different... they're building more ways to enjoy like spatial audio and stuff as technologies there move up, and then UI settings will now be added to be able to control the different new features and stuff that we have listed as we've gone. We are also getting some new slash commands to like hop into like desired positions on multi-person mounts, or jump straight to the patch notes, or we will of course be able to adjust Aggie Glamour size and all of that, which is something that they had addressed back when they talked about the summoner changes. So we have the pet size and the Aggie Glamour, and they'll have commands. We're also going to have some bypassing of ground targeting mode kind of executed, just kind of baked into the way some of these work. The additions they've made, they're also increasing the auto translation dictionary and that the autocomplete for the PlayStation 4 and 5 players. Of course, with new achievements to the game, the PS5 trophy system would have to be increased, and the sound engine is going to be able to easily discern sounds when a large group of players is present to stop that from just being outrageously loud. I assume that is really nice when you're around like Aetherites and you have other players' battle effects on. Remember that we are getting new music, new sound effects, new voices, and that we are getting an Oceanic Data Center eventually, but not yet. And so the map has been adjusted to get ready for that. The UI resolution for PlayStation 5, it's just going to straight up always use high resolution. So sorry, enjoy your higher quality. And the design has been changed for the game launcher, as well as having a dark and light theme. Our title screen and if you let it idle, the movie is going to change. And remember, as we said earlier, Reaper and Sage will be able to complete the deep dungeons. So they will, of course, be able to rank in those as well. So I did this in like a third of the time that we did it over on Work to Game. If you want a longer version, you want more commentary, or you want to go more line by line, I encourage you to go through and listen to that. But let's get into Endwalker. This was enjoyable. A lot of this was stuff we already knew, but we've been drinking from a fire hose, so maybe some of it's been missed. Hopefully that helps.